Bonsoir les causeurs, this is Llyane Stanfield, and today we are going to talk about how to answer question number 12 of the contest. It is the second last question of the contest, and the second last video lesson of the mini webinar series that I have put together for you. This mini webinar series is meant to help you learn without any effort, just by having fun in a contest. Just learn some nitty-gritty, more little tricky little, tricks, tips, situations in the French language that sometimes and because they are very foreign for the Anglophone, even if you actually went through them as a theory, in a course, you may forget them. So why don't you understand the French? And this is the big question many times, and I know that here you have been telling me a lot of, giving me a lot of examples of, oh, I have no idea what they're saying. It's like a big word mushed together, like the sentence is that unclear. So many times it's about ear training, and we just don't hear the words to separate them in words. And so we don't know the words, we don't hear the sounds to identify the words if we know them. That's one part of the question of the problem. Another part are constructions, phrase construction, the constructions of the phrase, of the French phrase, that are foreign, or that are just so different from English that they don't compute. And because we don't use them often enough, they're not practiced enough so that we get very comfortable with that. So let's be very honest, unless you really speak French all day long, or like, let's say 4 hours a day or something up to that extent, and every day, the probability of you actually encountering some of these constructions is very low. Especially when you speak, first that you're going to shy away from speaking, but let's say you're not, when you don't and you really get into it, of course we tend to speak about things we know and with the words that we already know. We don't feel very comfortable experimenting and with expressions, words, and so on. So today I'm going to explain why I don't understand the French, and the situation can happen. So I'm going to give you, this is about the negative. So when I'm saying it's in a negative mode. So probably most of you know already that ne, the word ne, so alright, let's start from the beginning for everybody. So in order for me to say something in the negative mode, I'm going to have to use two words in French. It's ne and pas. And typically ne and pas are wrapping around the verb. So in the present tense or any tense that is not composed, it's around the verb. And for the verbs that are composed, which involve an auxiliary, so there are two verbs, j'ai mangé. J'ai is the auxiliary, manger is the, well, verb. I'm not going to get into too much technicalities, just I really want to address this for everybody. And so when that's the case, if in that case, what happens is we ne and pas go around the auxiliary. Now, what happens is that many times in conversation, people are actually dropping the word ne. And so instead of just saying je ne mange pas du chocolat, I may say je mange pas de chocolat, du chocolat. Je mange pas du chocolat. That's pretty much the way I would say it in conversation. So you can't hear that really often. And so many of you may already be very acquainted to the fact that in conversation, you can drop the ne. But the situation gets a little more difficult and frustrating when pas disappears. And so what happens then? Well, there are two situations when we drop the word pas. And again, what I'm explaining here is to give you the theory and the examples. And then in the contest, you just need to make your own example. I don't want you to translate any of the examples of this mini webinar. I just want you to create your own. Very short, very simple, just create one example. So you have a ton of examples today. and just create your own based on the sample, the sample, which is the way to learn. The matching patterns is the way the brain's working absolutely the fastest. So if you want to learn really, really, really fast, you need to find a way to learn based on patterns. This is what I'm giving you right now. So this is a sample of the way I'm working in the intensive program. So if you receive my newsletter, you may have received one today. It is about a lot of the features and benefits of working through the intensive program. And so all of these elements that I'm telling you, and I have been telling you, and today and next time, are all part of the intensive program, where that actually takes care of you at every level that you need. So you can start from 0, and if you start from 0, you'll get into a high, intermediate to advanced level of conversation. I had been having people starting from 0 and getting into the advanced level with me through the intensive program. So this is what that does. And right now, the intensive program has a super juicy bonus. That is the Bilingual Express audiobook. And so if you want to check out the intensive program, please come on over to this link. Let me see if that works. Wait, I always start Parisian French Intensive Course.com. The dot is there? Yes, it is. All right. Parisian French Intensive Course.com. So, this is what it is. I believe that, yeah, it works. Yeah. So check out the intensive program and see, what covers. If you are already ready to do the real thing instead of just, playing around with it, I invite you to check out the intensive program just to see if this is something that would fit your desires, and that's what you want to, to do. So when do we drop the word pas? The first situation would be double negative, and the second situation would be ne expletif. I'm going to start explaining the double negative, which is really much simpler, I guess. It's one layer. Ne expletif has like 4 layers, and I'm going to explain everything with examples. The double negative in French appears when we are using ne and pas as well as another negative word. So for instance, if I say je ne mange, I never eat chocolate. If I think of it, well, it has to be negative and I don't eat, and then never. So I have to say je ne mange pas jamais du chocolat. That would be a double negative in French because pas and jamais are both negative. And so jamais will replace pas. So I'm going to say je ne mange jamais du chocolat. Pas disappears. Be careful. Another word that does that is plus. Say, for instance, I did eat chocolate for many, many years, but now I don't eat it anymore. So I'm going to say je ne mange plus du chocolat. I don't eat chocolate anymore. If I say, for instance, nobody eats chocolate, I'm not going to say, well, no, I'm not going to give that example because it's not very telling in this case. So I'm going to say, I don't see anybody. I don't see anybody here. I'm going to say, je ne vois personne ici. I'm not going to say, je ne vois pas personne ici because personne and pas are both negatives. And so personne replaces pas. And rien. Je ne mange rien aujourd'hui. I don't eat anything today. I'm not going to say je ne mange pas rien aujourd'hui because rien and pas are both negative. So rien replaces the word pas. So this would be double negative. And this is when pas disappears from your sentence or the French the person that you're speaking to. If they talk to you and you see, oh my goodness, where's his pas or her pas? Is this really a negative sentence? Because that is the problem that appears, right? If you don't see the pas and you think that you always need the pas in order for that sentence to be negative, you will think, oh, wait a second, that may not be a negative. And you will not understand the real story. So that's the first situation. Now the second situation, hello. The second situation is ne expletif. Ne expletif is a word that is actually an adverb, but I don't want to get into deep, like grammar and grammatical lingo, because a lot of people are very confused and inhibited by it. And so I don't use grammatical lingo actually for people who are not comfortable with it. And I do use grammatical lingo, I'm a linguist, so I know it, with people who are, comfortable and or curious about it. So a word, ne expletif, is that word ne that is not mandatory in the sentence. It doesn't have a negative sense, and it's not, so it doesn't have the pa after it, okay? So I'm going to give you a few examples. I made some notes to make sure that you have everything that you need. So I'm going to give you an example of a situation where ne expletif is there, and the same sentence without the ne is also possible and correct, showing how ne is actually not mandatory. And so, je l'ai prévenu avant qu'il ne soit trop tard. Je l'ai prévenu. I'm going to write all these sentences in the comments, don't worry. Je l'ai prévenu avant qu'il ne soit trop tard. And I'm happy that actually I'm saying it before I write it, because I want to actually give you an opportunity to give you a little bit of an example of an ear training, of an ear gymnastics. So I'm going to be very slow and clear. I'm going to enunciate really well, and I'm going to give you the example now, and then I'm going to write it in the comments after I'm done. So, je l'ai prévenu avant qu'il ne soit trop tard. Now, soit is être in the subjunctive, and so many of these will have subjunctives. This is definitely not for a beginner, but I want to show you, I want you to show yourself that even though this is not a topic for beginners, there is something that can be understood at any level, and you also can create a sentence that is like an example. So I warned him before it was too late. But I do have that ne soit, right? So that's the ne expletif. Without it would be je l'ai, actually, yeah, well, actually, I can actually do this. Wait a second. I just realized, okay, where's my mouse? Okay, I had lost my mouse. All right, okay, perfection. So I'm going to write this because I can copy and paste perfection. All right, now I have it. So, je l'ai prévenu avant qu'il ne soit trop tard. Now, the one with my mouse is jumping up and down. Sorry about this. Now, I'm going to give you the one without ne expletif, so they both are correct. Je l'ai prévenu avant qu'il soit trop tard, right? So they are equivalent sentences, just to know that. And so many people are asking me, well, the why? Okay, why? It's so complicated. Why do it this way? Why not just one? Well, if you really think about it with an objective eye, English too has options. And if you really think about it, that's the freedom. I mean, language is really an art. And so it's not like math. And so you have your choice of expressing yourself in a way or another. I personally prefer the expletive, and that's not because it sounds more French or anything. I just like it more. Another example of a preference that I have, for instance, s'asseoir has two forms of conjugation. I prefer je m'assieds, and I don't like je m'assois. It's just a personal preference. Why do we have two forms? I have no idea. I'm not gonna, go on that, pull at that thread really, because I don't think it gets us anywhere. But just an example of, well, we have choices, and use the one that you prefer. Now, at the beginning, when you're not very comfortable, use without it, but know and observe and be aware that it may happen. And so when someone uses it, when they speak to you, then you'll identify it and say, bingo, that was the expletive. Perfect. Then we have another situation in the sentences that show comparison, inequality, difference, superiority, inferiority. And so comparison. So I'm going to give you this example. I'm going to write it right in the comments. Why didn't I do this before? All right. So, c'est beaucoup moins difficile que je ne l'avais imaginé. C'est beaucoup moins difficile que je ne l'avais imaginé. That this is probably for more beginner people. This is probably an example that you may want to take in consideration when you answer question number 12, because this doesn't contain subjunctive, and I suggest that you don't use the other examples that contain subjunctive. So just a trick. All right, so this would be, it's much less difficult than I had imagined, right? So, c'est beaucoup moins difficile que je ne l'avais imaginé. See, we don't have the pas there. The third situation is in the sentences introduced by avant que, moins que, sans que. So, I'm going to give you this example in the comments. Agissons avant qu'il ne soit trop tard. Agissons avant qu'il ne soit trop tard. So let's act before it's too late, right? So qu'il ne soit, it's not a negative. It's not qu'il, that is not too late, that it's too late, right? Okay, so but qu'il soit is the subjunctive, which is something that I suggest that you avoid. If you don't know well the subjunctive, really avoid it, and there are many ways to do that. And in this particular exercise, I suggest that you use the example that doesn't have the subjunctive in it, and just make your own sentence using different words in the same structure. Pretty much what I'm looking for in the contest. And the fourth situation, the expletive, if the sentences are showing fear. If the sentences are showing fear, and that would be this. Je crains qu'il ne soit trop tard. Je crains qu'il ne soit trop tard. I fear it's too late. So, yeah, these are the examples. These are the cases. Now, what I want you to do, so I'm going to give you like strategies here, okay? So the first strategy for the contest, go with the example that is more comfortable to you and create a sentence of your own with different words, same structure. And that's pretty much what I'm looking for. I do want to see your examples there, because my goal is to have, to help you learn in this month that we've been doing this, as much French as you can imagine. And of course, because this is not really, it's a little tricky, I chose topics that are not the easiest, because that's really what I want. I want you to feel that you're going to your next level. And so I would like to see your examples there, just so that you have practiced and you have gained some knowledge. Now, the strategy for after the contest is gone, the strategy would be take the intensive program and learn everything, so that you will always have a support and know exactly what to do when and with what materials for it. And for your life, create cheat sheets with examples. But create cheat sheets with examples of sentences that really mean something to you. And the more you practice with patterns, the easier it's going to be for your brain to pick up and remember. And eventually you're going to go like, I don't know why, but this sounds right. And this is where I want to get you to, okay? I have no idea why I'm saying this way, but it just sounds right. That's where that happens when the brain is being practiced, is being hearing a lot of things. It's been, you've been saying sentences over and over again in different forms and shapes with different words with the same structure. And so that is the way to actually help your brain learn faster. So please check out the intensive program. It is with a fantastic, juicy bonus right now. It will expire very soon, so I really want to see you joining it. Come on over and ask me questions about it. I'm open to answering any questions that you have. And please do participate into the contest, because it is my goal is for you to have a progress during this month before Christmas. It's a topic of conversation, of course, with your friends and family. Where, whoa, last month, I learned this and that about French. Even if you don't go into the details, just telling people that and giving an example here and there, you're going to impress your guests. So stay on your game and keep going for your dreams to become bilingual, learn to speak Parisian French, and break your language barrier. Merci beaucoup et à la prochaine. Au revoir.